when they found that ancient Greek computer thing, what is that called?
The Antikythera mechanism.
Yes.
Yeah.
A shattered bronze box from a shipwreck didn't just predict eclipses, it forecasted moments when leaders could sway crowds. When divers first pulled it from the Aegean Sea, no one imagined that this corroded relic would expose the precision of a civilization 2,000 years ahead of its time. Half the machine was lost to the sea, but its remaining gears whispered secrets that scientists have now revived. Who rebuilt the missing half? And what did the front truly show? Over 5 chapters, we'll uncover how this ancient calendar of influence still terrifies historians today. Shipwreck that wouldn't stay silent. The discovery began with fear, not curiosity. In the spring of 1900, a storm forced a group of sponge divers to anchor near a small, rocky island between Crete and the Peloponnese, Antikythera.
The sponge divers' boat swept into an area off the islet of Antikythera, which is located north of Crete and south of the Greek mainland.
When diver Elias Stadiatos descended into the dark, he thought he had stumbled upon a graveyard of drowned sailors. Twisted shapes and lifeless figures loomed in the murk, their green patina glowing through the silt. Terrified, he rushed back to the surface. But what he had actually found were statues, bronze and marble treasures frozen mid-motion, scattered among the remains of a sunken ship. The wreck would soon yield something far stranger than art. Days passed, and Captain Dimitrios Kontos went down to the sea again, this time not empty-handed but holding a corroded bronze arm, which was considered evidence of the ancient cargo still on the seabed. The crew, along with the Greek navy, managed to bring out from the sea invaluable objects after several months of hard diving, from amphorae, jewels, and sculptures, which were all meant for Rome. However, the catch included a piece of rusted metal and rotten wood that appeared nothing but rubbish. It was packed, registered, and then left to be forgotten until a museum scholar, Valerios Stais, spotted something unbelievable: a gear tooth trapped in the rust. That single sparkling piece of geometry turned the world upside down. It wasn't a sculpture, it was a machine. Initial evaluation revealed interlocking bronze wheels, perfectly shaped teeth, and delicate Greek letters carved by hand. The artifact was consequently traced back to the 1st century BCE, earlier than the shipwreck that brought it. It was dubbed the Antikythera mechanism, the most intricate apparatus ever discovered from the ancient world. However, what made it even more amazing was the fact that only a third of it had been found. 82 fragments dispersed like a celestial jigsaw. The other parts, including the complete front face, had been lost. Historians saw a half-computer and its function buried in the past. Nevertheless, inquiries did not cease. Why so accurate? Who possessed the skill and the purpose to produce it? The historians concluded that the once-lost front was the pivotal point. They suspected that there, the device once showed the planets, the sun, and the moon in their paths, perhaps even marking the times of festivities or royal occasions. What the divers brought up was not simply an artifact. It was a token of a lost scientific order that did not comply with the timeline of history as we know it. Before scientists could rebuild it, they had to make the bronze speak again. And when it did, it revealed words that no one expected to find engraved inside a machine. When bronze learned to speak, for nearly a century, the Antikythera mechanism sat in silence, its gears too fragile, its inscriptions too faint to read.
Computer thing, what is that called?
The Antikythera mechanism.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, that testifies to...
Scholars peered at it through magnifying glasses, guessing at the purpose behind its shattered form. It wasn't until the early 2000s that technology finally began to break its silence. In 2005, an international team rolled a 12-ton computed tomography scanner, nicknamed Blade Runner, into the National Archaeological Museum of Athens. They weren't looking for treasure, they were looking for data. As the machine bombarded the corroded fragments with high-energy X-rays, thousands of cross-sections emerged, each revealing hidden layers of gears, rods, and faintly scratched Greek characters that hadn't been seen in 2,000 years. Alongside the CT scans, researchers used reflectance imaging from Hewlett-Packard to virtually relight the metal surface, pulling ghost-like inscriptions from beneath centuries of corrosion. These letters, etched no deeper than the width of a fingernail, turned out to be instructions, calculations, and astronomical notations. The fragments began to whisper their language back. The first reading confirmed what early theorists had suspected. The rear of the mechanism predicted eclipses, lunar cycles, and calendars aligned with the seasons. But there was more. An entire manual, once thought lost, was hiding on the corroded front covers. The deciphering of the scripts led to the discovery of more than 3,400 new characters, an amazing progress by 2016 that changed the situation of vague speculation into more than black and white science. The researchers came to the conclusion that the texts were not poetic riddles, they were engineering notes. With the aid of the device's front dials, the researchers described why the texts were engineering notes, explaining how the device was built. Phrases mentioned the 5 known wandering stars: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Then there was a turning point that no one saw coming: the introduction of artificial intelligence. DeepMind's Ithaca model, which was trained to restore missing Greek inscriptions, started to analyze damaged text segments of the Antikythera fragments in 2019. It could predict the missing characters with an approximate accuracy of 62% on its own, but when combined with the human experts, their accuracy soared over 70%. Thus, the whole sentences that had been rendered illegible due to age were brought back to life. The tiny signs, which previously seemed to be just scratches, were found to be the symbols of astronomy and geometric measurements. The words talked about the planet's revolutions and phases, the speech of movement, not myth. Moreover, AI did the translation. It was the key to understanding the text. Cross-referencing the inscriptions with the fragment's physical layout, a new scenario emerged. The text spoke of a cosmos that had concentric rings, one ring indicating a planet's position with respect to the zodiac. This was consistent with the mathematical cycles found on the surviving gears. The missing part was not ornamental, as it was supposed to be the universe control panel. The Greeks believed it to be a dynamic model that could simulate the movement of heavenly bodies, predict eclipses, etc. But knowing what the inscriptions said was only half the battle. The real question remained: could anyone actually rebuild the missing half? Packing a cosmos in a shoebox. Rebuilding the Antikythera mechanism's missing half was never about guesswork. It was about reverse engineering genius. The fragments left behind gave modern scientists just enough to start: 82 bronze pieces, 30 gears, and inscriptions that demanded mathematical perfection. But how do you reconstruct a device that predicted the heavens with technology supposedly 2,000 years too early? The answer came from decades of obsessive study, patient craftsmanship, and one man who refused to accept that the front half of the machine was forever lost. That man was Michael T. Wright, a curator at the Science Museum in London. In the early 2000s, long before computers could simulate complex gear systems, Wright built physical models by hand, gear by gear, tooth by tooth. He introduced a crucial idea: epicyclic gearing, where smaller gears orbited larger ones to mimic the non-uniform motion of planets. This was revolutionary because it mirrored how the Greeks themselves described celestial motion, planets speeding up and slowing down as they crossed the night sky.
The planets. This is a model of the Greek cosmos, geocentric. You can think of this cover plate in the middle as representing the Earth.
Wright even developed a pin and slot mechanism that allowed gears to accelerate and decelerate smoothly. replicating the erratic movements of Mercury and Venus. His reconstructions weren't perfect, but they proved something once thought impossible. The front face could, in fact, have worked. In the year 2021, the team at University College London took a different angle on the project, that is, the angle of Wright's foundation, and something he never had: supercomputing power, high-resolution scans, and a complete transcription of the inscriptions on the front cover. They went as far as to formulate a mathematically consistent architecture that could satisfy all the constraints imposed by the ancient engineers, that is, mechanical, spatial, and astronomical. The model that was constructed comprised of 69 interlocking gears, 35 of them from the rear part that were still existing, and 34 that were newly reconstructed for the front part. The whole process involved counting the teeth of all the gears, aligning the shafts of all the gears, and fitting the paths of all the gears within a frame smaller than a shoebox. The model of the cosmos, an exceptional design, was a wonder of packing efficiency. A central dome stood for Earth, and nested rings represented the Moon, Sun, and the 5 planets that could be seen with the naked eye. The whole system was based on a central coaxial output, a cluster of thin tubes, so that different celestial displays could rotate at the same time under one hub without interference. To maximize the efficiency of the system, planetary trains were commonly used, which meant that the wheels that moved Saturn were also used for the Sun's movement. This wasn't a coincidence, but an exquisite calculation of beauty. The ancient engineers made a small analog of the universe where the mere crank turned 9 celestial cycles into one mechanical ballet. The reconstruction even resolved long-standing questions concerning the fragments. A bronze block, formerly perceived as confusing and marked Fragment D, was eventually found to be a core part of the Venus gear system, with a small disk having a hole that fitted exactly into a slot for producing the planet's erratic motion. In addition, Spoke B, a fragment that had puzzled scientists for decades, was discovered to be a part of the lunar node mechanism, the dynamic line where the Moon's orbit crosses that of the Sun. Thus, it is essential for predicting eclipses. The fragments, which were previously interpreted as haphazard leftovers, all of a sudden found their place within UCL's model. But knowing the gears worked was one thing. Seeing what they displayed was another. It showed a cosmos so intricate, it changed how humanity understood its place in the universe. The day the sky became readable. When the reconstructed mechanism finally came to life, it wasn't just a machine, it was a revelation. Turning the crank brought the heavens into motion. At its center sat Earth, still and unmoving, just as the ancients believed. Around it spun a series of delicate rings, each representing one of the 7 celestial bodies known to the Greeks: the Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Beyond them, 2 fixed outer rings framed the cosmos, one marking the zodiac's 12 constellations, the other counting the days of the year. For the first time in 2,000 years, scientists could see exactly what an ancient astronomer saw: a living map of the sky that moved with perfect mathematical harmony. The Moon's system was the most mesmerizing. A tiny marble-sized sphere, half painted black, half white, rotated as it orbited the zodiac ring, displaying the Moon's phases in real time. With each turn of the handle, nights passed in seconds, new moons darkened, crescents grew, and full moons bloomed again. The device didn't just tell when the moon would appear, it showed how it would look. Its pointer tracked the moon's position across the zodiac, while an intricate subgear calculated its age, the days since the last new moon. By comparing the moon's pointer to the sun's, users could instantly read the moon's age, just as Cicero once described a bronze machine that made the moon keep as many revolutions behind the sun as it lagged in the sky. That description, long thought metaphorical, turned out to be literal. The sun's track was equally detailed. Its golden bead glided smoothly around the zodiac, crossing Aries to mark spring, Cancer for summer, Libra for autumn, and Capricorn for winter. It wasn't symbolic, it was functional astronomy. Without a single telescope, the Greeks had built a device capable of mapping solstices, equinoxes, and the timing of seasonal change. The surviving inscriptions even mention a ray for the sun, representing its glare. A touch of realism showing how deeply the maker understood not just the math of the cosmos, but its appearance. Then the solar system was created, and so was the divine-like animated motion. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, in that order, were given rings and beads along with cycles predefined by the gearing of the device. They did not move with constant speed, but stopped for a moment, changed direction, and again moved ahead, like the planets did in their retrograde motion, which was already known to the ancient astronomers through their gaze of the sky. The Greeks found no chaos, but rather order in the universe. A bead reaching a certain spot on its ring was an indication of a celestial event, a conjunction, when a planet was passing close to the sun, an opposition, when a planet was at the opposite side of the sun and thus the brightest, or a station, when a planet was about to change its direction and thus it appeared to stop. All these events were highly significant for science and religion alike. The whole parapegma, a celestial calendar, was what encompassed all this. The zodiac was inscribed with minute Greek letters that unmistakably hinted at the seasonal notes on the two rectangular panels typographically positioned above and below the dial. Each letter was pointed out for one specific event in the sky: the ascent of Sirius, the disappearance of Orion, and the rise of certain constellations. The mechanism would be utilized by the farmers, the sailors, and the priests to time their harvesting, sailing, or offering, all with the aid of a cosmic schedule that was beyond human control. It was not merely a tool, it was the dominion over time itself. The setup of the device was such that the user only needed to align the calendar ring to the exact date and to push the handle forward to get it going. By that single movement, the whole universe would be spinning for them, the sun pointing out the period, the moon revealing its phase, the planets traveling along their route, and the dragon's hand slowly approaching its annihilation. Every turn of the cogs made months, if not years, of star movement time disappear in mere seconds. It was like a visual prophecy machine that converted the cosmos's rhythms into something comprehensible. Once scientists realized what its predictions could control, not just in the heavens but on Earth, they understood why historians still call its calculations terrifying. The calendar of influence. For centuries, historians described the Antikythera mechanism as a scientific marvel, a way for Greek astronomers to understand their skies. But the deeper researchers dug, the more unsettling the truth became. This wasn't just a machine for tracking planets or predicting eclipses, it was a device that could control time itself, and, more dangerously, the people who lived by it. Once the missing half was rebuilt, the implications became impossible to ignore. Whoever owned this instrument didn't just study the heavens, they managed the narrative of the world below them. The Greeks lived by celestial cycles. Festivals, planting seasons, voyages, and even military campaigns were timed according to the movements of the sky. If you could predict those movements, especially eclipses, which terrified and awed the public, you could command both fear and faith. Ancient rulers often claimed divine favor when the sun darkened or the moon bled red. But with the Antikythera mechanism, those signs from the gods could be foreseen. Imagine knowing the precise moment an eclipse would strike months, even years, in advance. You could stage an omen, align a coronation, or declare a prophecy fulfilled, all backed by what seemed like divine proof. The mechanism was no longer just an astronomical computer. It was the ultimate calendar of power. The geographic clues inscribed on the metal, which were the month names of the Corinthian calendar, a calendar used in areas such as Epirus and Corcyra, even point to a political layer. This indicated that the creator was not only reflecting the sky, but also imparting the civic identity in the design. The machine's cycles were not only of astronomical nature, but also of cultural signatures. This brought out a rather uncomfortable possibility that the different versions of the mechanism might have been personalized for different patrons, hence embedding their local months and gods. The Antikythera mechanism might have played the double role of a scientific instrument and a propaganda machine, thus conferring earthly power with the divine right. Scientists of the present day have started to understand the amount of calculations that were involved in the whole thing. The mechanism did not just simulate the movement of the planets. It was a combination of mathematics, artistry, and religion telling one story. The movement of the front dials not only reveals the positions of the heavens, but also imparts the very concept. Each turning of the handle lent stronger belief to the idea of human events being in harmony with the divine order. That idea gave power, and that power, as historians are now saying, might have been a source of terror for the later civilizations that rediscovered the instrument. The thought that mankind had once taken control of the skies, that they could determine fate with the help of gears, was highly disturbing. The Antikythera mechanism has finally spoken, and what it revealed shattered more than bronze. It broke the illusion that ancient civilizations were limited by their time. It wasn't just built to watch the heavens, it was designed to command them. If this changed how you see ancient technology, like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us which part of the rebuild surprised you most. And watch the next video on screen for more lost machines that still shape how we think today.